So, have you ever stopped to think about where all the internet stuff actually lives? I mean, all those photos, videos, websites. A huge chunk of it is stored in a service called Amazon S3. And in this explainer, we're going to pull back the curtain on how this incredibly powerful cloud storage really works. We'll cover everything from its global reach right down to the nitty-gritty details that can save you a ton of time and money. Ready? Let's dive in. Okay, so here's the game plan. First up, we'll get our heads around S3's global foundation. Then, we'll jump into how you actually handle your data. After that, we'll explore some of S3's really powerful capabilities, and we'll wrap things up by looking at how you can optimize your storage and, keep those costs down. All right, let's kick things off with the big picture, S3's global foundation. Now, this might sound kind of simple, but really getting a handle on its unique global yet regional setup is absolutely key to using it the right way. So, here's the core concept, and it's a little bit of a paradox. S3 is a global service, but your buckets, the containers for your data, are regional. What on earth does that mean? Well, it means that while the S3 interface is worldwide, when you go to create a storage bucket, you have to pick a physical geographical region, say US East 1 in Virginia or EU West 2 in London. And this is so important. Why? Because it lets you put your data closer to your users for way faster access, and it helps you check all the boxes for local data privacy laws. It's a huge deal. Okay, so we know where our data is going to live. Now, let's get into the fun stuff, the data itself. We're talking object size, how you get it uploaded, and, of course, who gets to access it. So when we talk about file size, S3 is, it's built for seriously big data. We're talking about a single object being up to a massive 5 terabytes. Yeah, 5 times terabytes. And that is just an enormous amount of space. It's more than enough for things like gigantic video files, massive scientific datasets, or even complete system backups. But there's a little catch. You can store a 5 terabyte file, sure, but you can't just upload it in one single shot. The limit for one upload operation is 5 gigabytes. So that begs the question, right? What happens when your file is bigger than 5 gigs? The answer is this really clever process called a multi-part upload, and you can see how it works right here. S3 basically breaks your huge file into these smaller, more manageable chunks. Then you upload these parts independently. You can even do it in parallel to speed things up. And the best part? If one little chunk fails, you just re-upload that part, not the whole monster file. Once all the pieces are there, S3 just stitches them back together perfectly into the original object. It's super resilient. Okay, let's switch gears and talk security. This is a big one. S3 gives you 2 main ways to control who gets to touch your data. The first is user-based policies. Think of this like giving a specific person a key. That key lets them open certain doors they're allowed to inside your AWS account. The second type is resource-based policies. Now this is different. This is like putting a lock directly on the door. In this case, the S3 bucket itself. This is especially powerful when you need to grant access to someone from a completely different AWS account. So the big takeaway here is this. For cross-account access, it's not enough for the person to have a key. The lock on the door has to be configured to accept that key too. Both have to agree. All right, so S3 is for more than just storing files. It has some seriously powerful capabilities that might actually surprise you. We're going to look at 3 of my absolute favorites: hosting static websites, something called versioning, and data replication. Okay, this first one is so cool. Did you know that you can host an entire static website? I'm talking the whole thing, directly from an S3 bucket? That's right, no servers to set up, no web servers to manage. You literally just upload your HTML, CSS, and JavaScript files, flip a switch, and S3 serves it all directly to the internet. It's amazing. But, and this is a big but, there's a super common mistake people make when setting this up. If you ever try this and get that dreaded 403 forbidden error, it almost always means one thing: you forgot to make your files public. See, by default, everything in S3 is locked down tight. It's private. For a website to work, you have to go in and add a special bucket policy that specifically allows public read access. It's a really simple fix for a problem that trips up pretty much everyone at first. Next up, let's talk about versioning. Honestly, this is one of my favorite features. It's basically a super-powered undo button for your files. When you turn on versioning for a bucket, S3 starts keeping a complete history of every single change to every object. It's an incredible safety net. And here's why that is so important. Let's say you accidentally delete a file, poof, it's gone. Well, with versioning turned on, it's not really gone.
S3 just puts this little thing called a delete marker on top. The old version is still there, safe and sound. You can just reach back in time, remove the marker, and restore the previous version instantly. It is an absolute lifesaver for protecting against those oops moments, and by the way, you need to have versioning on for replication to work. Now, speaking of replication, we've got to talk about a very important rule, one that catches a lot of people out. And the rule is this: there is no chaining in replication. So what does that actually mean? Let's say you set up bucket 1 to automatically copy its files over to bucket 2. Great. Then you set up bucket 2 to copy its files over to bucket 3. You might think that a file you put in bucket 1 would end up in bucket 3, right? Nope, it doesn't work that way. The objects from bucket 1 are not replicated to bucket 3. That replication chain stops after one hop. So you really have to plan your replication paths carefully if you need data in multiple places. All right, let's wrap up with something that's on everyone's mind: cost. Storing all this data isn't free, of course, but S3 gives you some incredibly powerful tools to manage your spending. The absolute key is understanding and choosing the right S3 storage class based on how you access your data. So S3 has this whole spectrum of storage classes, and you can see the main ones broken down here. Let's just hit the highlights, okay? At the top, you've got standard. Think of this as your go-to, your everyday storage for stuff you need all the time. It's fast, but it's also the most expensive. Then you've got things like standard IA or one zone IA. The IA stands for infrequent access. This is for data you don't need every day, and storing it is cheaper, but you pay a little bit to retrieve it. Then you get down to the Glacier tiers. Glacier Deep Archive is ridiculously cheap for storage, but it's meant for long-term archiving. We're talking data you need to keep for years for compliance reasons, and hope you never have to touch again, because getting it back can take hours. And then there's this really cool one, intelligent tiering, which is like having a robot butler for your data. It watches how you use your files and automatically moves them to the most cost-effective tier for you. No retrieval fees on that one, which is awesome. The whole point is to match your data's access pattern to the right class to save money. Wow, okay, let's do a super quick recap of everything we've just covered. We figured out that S3 is a global service, but your buckets live in specific regions. We learned you can store absolutely massive 5 terabyte objects, but if they're over 5 gigs, you have to use a multi-part upload. We saw how to manage access using both user-based and resource-based policies, and we covered that super cool feature of hosting static websites right from a bucket. We also learned 2 really critical rules: always use versioning as your data safety net, and never forget that replication does not chain. And finally, we saw how picking the right storage class is the secret to balancing performance with your budget. And that is a wrap on our deep dive into the world of Amazon S3. We've covered a ton of ground, from the absolute fundamentals to some really powerful cost-saving features. I really hope this gives you the confidence to go out there and get even more out of this amazing service. If you found this helpful, definitely follow us for more explainers just like this. So now I'll leave you with one final question to chew on. Armed with all this knowledge, what are you going to build with these S3 features in your next project?